We've been doing well. We're beating all our 12:30 competition right now.
Who is your competition?
Great. I don't know. Okay.
When Madonna would come on and curse.
Yeah.
You are a sick fuck.
Okay, she cursed like 14 times, said fuck. At the time when you're in that, are you thinking this is the shittiest show ever? She's ruining this interview. Or are you recognizing that this is going to be something they play over and over again for the rest of your career because it's so great? Do you know it's great?
Sometimes, again, I'm a completely different person now.
Right.
And I would be so much more better equipped to view the immediate surroundings of that show now than I was when Madonna was on.
Right.
We used to have a guy on who was a cartoonist out of Cleveland, very, very funny guy.
Harvey Picar.
Harvey Picar.
Right, okay.
And he was great. He was tremendous.
I wanted to ask you, listen, we're getting into it, Dave. Just keep me on for another 10 minutes. Anyway,
he would just go after stuff.
Why?
He would whine. He would go after me. He would go after the network. He would go after everything in a very committed way. It wasn't a gag. It wasn't an act. He would really go to work on you.
Right. And he meant every word of what he was saying.
Yes, he was anti-establishment in a way that you don't see guys like that anymore. And that used to really upset me because I just thought, come on, Harvey, don't do this to us. Come on, just play the game, blah, 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 blah. Now, geez, I wish I could have had Harvey on every night.
Right.
Because that was tremendous.
And it was something original. It was not a guy playing the Hollywood game.
Right. I was so self-absorbed, needlessly self-absorbed, because I'm following Johnny Carson. I don't know what's going to happen. There's a million guys lined up to take my job. Every night was life and death.
You know, that's the other weird part of the movie, too, because they showed all your appearances on Johnny Carson, little clips from it.
Yeah.
And you were in love with this guy. What he did for your career is unbelievable. And then all of a sudden I went, no wonder Johnny did kind of feel betrayed. Like, he felt like he did so much for you.
I thanked him for 20 years, and all I did when my contract was up, where I made no money, Howard.
There you go again.
Here we go again.
Right.
No money was not. Johnny was making $350 million, and I was making something that didn't even. Just about.
Yeah.
Just about. Maybe.
And you had a shot to go to Fox.
For my own show. And Cosby had left. Brennan had left. They had all left. All men. I swear to you. He just thought I was a woman. And I called him and said, I've got my own show. Hung up on me.
Yeah. Well,
20
you can see
years.
why. But do you understand the compliment that is there? He was so threatened by you. You were so popular hosting The Tonight Show that when you announced you were going up against him, he panicked.
But then, Howard, if you're making $350 million and she's so important to you, give her a contract.
That's the other sad part of the movie, how Fox built you up and then tore you down in a minute.
Thursday to Friday. Still can't discuss it. Still can't discuss it.
You still can't discuss what happened at Fox. Well, I saw you started to cry when they said...
I watched the movie, and the 2 times I cry in that movie, and I've seen it now 15 times.
Right.
When I say Fox from Thursday to Friday, it was over. Cannot deal with it still to this day.
Wow. Well, you said you couldn't handle the fact that Edgar was going to be fired, and you couldn't fire him.
I couldn't. They said to me, you can stay. He goes.
Wow. When you look back on it now, couldn't they have done it so they brought in another executive and worked with Edgar? They could. There was a way.
Of course.
This is my point about
it's
networks.
Business.
The ratings you had on your late night show.
Oh, they'd kill for those.
If they had those now, they would kill for them.
Yeah.
You know, it was just too intense a situation with Carson being mad and this and that. If everyone had just calmed the fuck down, the thing would have worked. You were the hottest thing on TV.
But then I wouldn't have had the light that I've had.
I spend so much time in my life going back and observing your talk show. There's some great stuff to go back and look at. You brought out Michael Jackson to give Eddie an award. Bill Clinton playing the sax, and especially the one with Prince. You were delivering the fucking goods for a syndicated late night show to be pulling those kind of ratings, and yet the perception was that you weren't doing enough. And I bet you that drove you crazy. What do I have to do?
And they wanted me to, demographically speaking, they would tell me to be a little more conservative because when Johnny leaves, you want to inherit that audience. Mm-hmm. And so there was always a fight about, like I remember the first time Ice Cube came to visit me. and he wanted to bring me a cassette, and it was a cassette of "Fuck the Police." And that was the first time. Now we look back, it's kind of funny. But so I went to Paramount. I'm like, we want to debut "Fuck the Police" with NWA, and they were like, you can't even introduce them. You can't even say their name,
Right.
And they wanted me to be. They fought me on who I actually became. My thing was Johnny is doing Steve and Edie, but there's an audience in America that doesn't have a talk show. Let me be that guy. And it wasn't just, black people. It was like, somebody to do David Bowie, somebody to do a lot of acts that there was a lot of stuff that the legends didn't like. And as much as I walked out with a smile and did the show every night, I was tortured, man. It was always some shit. Like me and Ice Cube are cool now. But when Paramount wouldn't let me put NWA on, he wrote a song and put, when a rapper puts your name, when he spit your name in some bars, it's like, oh, fuck. And I didn't even know my name rhymed with anything. And all of a sudden I turn on the radio and it's like, everybody asks me how I like Arsenio about as much as I like the bicentennial. And I'm like, oh, fuck.
Now we're reading in the paper that you're going to get fired.
It's not going to happen.
Already
It's not.
replaced
Look, they were
you
saying,
according to the paper.
I haven't been on the air for 2 weeks. There's no film in the camera.
Did you go in and speak to the president of the?
No, I swear to God, Howard. In all
Right.
fairness, they've been saying this. I've been living this.
Forever.
I've been hearing this constantly for a year and a half. So
Now,
now I just have an immunity.
What happened with the contract? They wouldn't give you a long-term contract? Was
I
that
never
it?
really had a long-term contract. I
figured
didn't
they-
have a great bargaining position when I came in. It's not
Right.
like I said, look, I'm not coming into this job unless you give me 10 years and $13 million a year. So I've never had, actually.
Bargaining
That's very
position.
silly, yeah. That was a rube. I walked in, I signed anything.
Would they have you sign the contract in invisible ink? So in case you,
That's right.
they check
Lemon
that?
juice.
Contract.
Right.
It's in lemon juice.
It's a lot of pressure Conan's under. A lot was written when you got late night. You said, well, he never had a show before. So what? You got your shot there. You're doing it. You continue to grow in the ratings.
We've been doing well. We're beating all our 12:30 competition right now.
Who
We're
is your
doing great.
competition?
I don't know. Okay. There's this. Okay, good point, Howard.
Here's what you've got to do.
What do I have to do? Help me.
I'm being serious.
All right.
I analyze television because all I do is watch television.
Okay.
Unlike you, I don't have girlfriends and stuff like that to keep me busy.
Distractions.
I
Thank
sit
you.
and watch TV day and night.
All right.
What happens is when Jay Leno and David Letterman are on, they are your lead-in. Do you understand why I'm
Do
saying
people
that?
at home understand the concept of lead-in?
Yeah, I'll explain.
Okay.
Because it's a very difficult concept. They're the shows on before.
Hence the name lead-in.
Lead-in. It is Conan's job to keep a percentage of those viewers awake. If he can get half of the people to stay awake, there will be no stopping him.
Studies show I don't even have to entertain them. I
Right.
just have to keep them awake.
Who cares how you do it?
Exactly.
Just get the job done and everyone's happy.
So you think I have a shot?
I believe you just got to plug away. Ignore what everyone tells you. Just keep sticking to it, and it will
Okay.
succeed. Do you understand?
Well, you've encouraged me. I feel good now.
Of course I've encouraged you. Stick
Now,
in
is there
there.
any chance you would ever come on the show?
No. You're working hard. You got this new show on ABC. What's the show called? Jimmy Kimmel Show?
Jimmy Kimmel Live.
Is it a live show?
Yeah, it's live.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
No kidding. And
Yeah.
no mistakes and everything.
Oh, yeah. And we did a couple of test shows, and there are a lot of them.
What? Like what? Like what happens?
Every single time they come to me, I'm looking the wrong way.
Oh, good.
So the guests are coming out on either side, and I don't know what's happening. I'm looking. I'm really not good at it. It turns out. I really, at the end of the first show, I was just like, this is not going to work. This really isn't going to work. I felt like
show.
I was pretending to be a talk show host,
Right.
and no one wants to be on my show either.
Oh, really?
I was going to say, are you having trouble booking people? Because
Yes.
what do you tell them?
Yeah, like who did you get for your test shows?
Well, the test shows, I was able to land Adam Carolla
Wow. How
and
depressing.
Ben Stein.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, God. I mean, you know what?
And,
How is Ben Stein?
My Uncle Frank was on the test
No,
show.
seriously, who is there?
Seriously.
Your Uncle Frank? Who's your first guest on the Super Bowl show?
We don't have one
You don't
yet.
even have a guest.
Oh, the biggest night.
We had to turn in like a schedule to TV Guide. It has to go like 3 weeks, and we have no. I mean, we have no
You have
guests.
nothing to give them.
So I just
Who you
put
get?
surprise guest with an exclamation point under every show.
Are you nervous as hell?
I'm nervous. Yeah, I'm always nervous though. But yeah, I'm pretty nervous.
Are you going to have a band? You got a band leader?
Yep, I got a
and that whole
band.
thing?
The band is my buddy. He's been my best friend since I was 9 years old.
Yeah, who is that?
His name's Cleto Escobedo. He grew up across the street from me. Him and his dad, and I have a lot of family members working on the show. My Uncle Frank, my cousin Sal, my cousin Mickey. It's
Really? That's a good idea.
A family affair.
Yeah, it's, otherwise
idea.
you never
So,
get to see anybody. I mean, you really don't.
I wish you a lot of luck, dude. I mean, I really do. I
appreciate
think
it.
you're a funny, talented guy, but things can go horribly wrong.
I know they can.
You know.
Can and will.
When Craig Kilborn left,
Right.
and they did a bunch of tryout shows,
Yeah.
and I did them because they asked me to do it. I had been a guest on actually Conan's show. Peter LaSalle had seen me being on Conan.
They liked you as a guest.
They liked me as a guest, and so they asked me to come and do a guest host. And then Peter LaSalle believed in me,
Right.
And that was really it, because Peter was so powerful and so influential and so clever about that thing.
And Peter LaSalle, who was originally Johnny Carson's guy, and
Right.
then went with Letterman,
Right.
And Letterman's production company owned the time slot.
That's the thing.
They were able to hire you.
It created an environment which I don't think will ever exist in television again. It was this weird confluence of events.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know about this world at all.
No, you were not like a late night talk
No.
show enthusiast, right?
No, but
Yeah.
but Peter schooled me in it because he was like Yoda, he knew everything about it, and he would teach me how to wear your tie like this. Don't do your apparently I had a creepy laugh when I started. So he's like, don't do your creepy laugh, you're creeping people out.
Right.
And he's such a gentleman, and he's so kind of classy, and
He was like Yoda to you.
Yeah.
And it was, when you say it was a perfect storm, you got hired because Letterman owned the time slot.
Right.
Peter LaSalle was his guy.
Right.
LaSalle's your fan.
Right.
Those guys go to bat for you. They don't have to go to the network, really. They
not really,
own the
because
time
Dave
slot.
owns it. Yeah.
And you get to be the host.
Yeah.
When they first gave you a talk show, and since you had never done one, and we weren't really into that whole system,
Right.
you kind of approach it like an actor. You watched Regis, you watched Letterman, and me, and you'd say, okay, if I had to act like these guys, what would I do?
Right.
So when you first get on, you're sort of acting your way through it.
Right, you're faking it.
And then
Right.
you got to find your way.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a hell of a way to enter a job, where you haven't even just had a chance to sort of formulate
Right,
what
and
you want.
it would never have worked if the situation had not existed where I was protected by Dave's deal.
So now you've got your own show, and you've got to prove to the world all of a sudden that you're the world's greatest talk show host. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just weird because I don't know how to do it yet.
You're doing fine. The hardest part for you, I think, is, the first night you get Robert De Niro, and you got this one coming up.
Justin Timberlake. And they're
you
really
have to
building it up.
In order to make this first week dynamic, you had to call these people personally.
Yeah.
And say, please do my show. Is that not the most embarrassing, horrible aspect of this?
It really, yeah. Because
I could never make that
I
call.
don't want to do it, and you go, but it's like, do you mind? Tina Fey, which is, God, she is the coolest girl ever. And I said to Tina, she goes, I'll do anything for you. I said, will you do my second show? Because that's the
But
tough
wait a
show to
second. When
book.
you say do anything, you had to pick up the phone. You have her home phone number, and you called her personally. Yeah. And do you feel like maybe she's saying to herself, "Oh no, he's going to ask me
Jimmy's
to do the
on
show"?
the phone.
Of course, yeah. I sent her an email. I sent her an email, so I don't have to hear her roll her eyes over the phone.
How do you get De Niro? Do you know him personally?
I did. I worked with him Saturday Night Live.
Right.
This is like 6 years ago, and we had fun. He's a really cool guy. He's
Okay,
like really
but when
fun.
you worked with him on Saturday Night Live, was it so much fun that he said to you, Jimmy, I want you to take my home phone number and you have it and call me from time to time and we're going to talk? It wasn't that close a relationship.
No. Even running into him, it's just like, hi.
Right.
And then he walks away. The door's closed. I'm stuck in a room with Jug Dash and all the guys from Animal House.
So how does this come about? You had to call him personally, right?
I had, I actually I used Lauren a little bit too. I'm like, can we call Jane Rosenthal, which is De Niro's partner?
Right.
I'm like, can you ask if Robert De Niro would come on? And they said, yeah, he'd love to. He'd be honored.
Wow.
Like, right off the bat. And he's got nothing to plug. And I was like, that's cool. And we did this bit. It was silly, but we did like a fake movie that we were in that never got released. But what we did was, if you're in the studio, we did it live.
Right.
In front of a screen, like a green screen.
Like a Saturday Night Live sketch.
Exactly.
Right.
So the audience loved it. Probably people at home didn't understand what it was all about.
That's good.
So 200 people enjoyed it. 2.4 million people thought it sucked.
With that late night show on E, I think that was a terrific format for you. I bet you look back on that now and say, maybe I should have stuck with that.
No. Why would I want to stick with that? Because there's no evolution there. That's me in one format doing one thing that wasn't that interesting to me. Nobody could have enjoyed that period of time more than I did. I guarantee you. We would laugh our asses off every single day at work. We would get to work and just start sending emails from everyone else's computer. All we did was bullshit all day. And we would laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. And I did enjoy it. And then I outgrew it.
Why run away from it?
At that time in my life, I just didn't, it wasn't interesting. I was, irritated all the time. I needed a break. I do believe that I'm in a better place, and I like that I've grown up a lot. I'm not a self-absorbed lunatic anymore, and that's how I was for many years. I was self-absorbed. It was all about me, and that's not a way to operate. And so I had to remove myself from that situation to get myself in a better headspace.
You were particularly good on that format, but I know that you had angst with it.
Just the gossiping, about celebrities felt empty and vacuous after a while, and then it started to feel mean. And then I was like, oh, I don't need to be doing this. It's fun for a minute. It was a good gag or a good gig. It was 8 years, so it was a good run, but I just, it was that kind of thing too. Plus, it's also a pain in the ass to be running a show. You have to deal with publicists. You have to deal with talent and their demands. And this person doesn't want to go after this person. And then the other shows competing with who goes first. It's all of that. I was like, this is so stupid. I don't look back at it like I'm embarrassed by it. I just look back at it like that was then, and I outgrew it.
How long is this segment every night that you do a closer look? How long is it?
10 to 14 minutes.
Oh, that's a lot of time in television.
Yes.
It's a lot of time. And in the 10 to 14 minutes, this guy, Sal Gentile, who worked at cable news, but he's a comedian, which is weird.
Yep.
He's the perfect guy for this. What did he do in cable news?
A segment producer. That's what we started with him. He came in and he was one of our guys who when we had political guests on our show, he would be the guy who would put together those segments, and he would be the guy who would help me write the questions for them. And then the first few closer looks, I tried to write on my own. And I had clocked that Sal was really smart, and I just brought him into my office. He wasn't even a writer on our show, and I would say, "Hey, does this at least track? Does this all make sense? Because I don't want to trip over my own feet trying to make a point." And Sal very often would say, "Actually, this is wrong. But if you said it this way, it would be right, and it would prove your point, or at least make a better case for it." And so very quickly after we brought him in a few times, I said, "Would you like to be a writer, and would you like to be in charge of a closer look?" And
that's amazing.
Yeah, and again, in the beginning, it was once a month, then it was once a week, and pretty quickly, we heard the kind of lovely feedback that you're giving us. It does feel like the part of the show that people turn up for, and we do 3 out of the 4 days a week that we do our show because we are worried that Sal is going to die.
So this guy, when he sits down, he reads through the newspaper, decides what it is he likes the best, and he puts together the framework of what you're going to talk about that night.
Yes. And I think the other thing they do is they keep an eye on clips that might be informative to the point that you want to make. They'll watch the Sunday morning shows and they'll realize, Lindsey Graham did this interview and it's really perfect for the point we're trying to make. And it's also funny. Look, we have people who can write jokes, and Sal's very good at writing jokes as well. The way he builds it's like the curtain rod that supports the jokes is the thing that I've met so few people in comedy that they can do. Because without that, 14 minutes of jokes is not as much fun as people think it would be. You have to have something underneath it that has some nutritional value.
There's such a public thing with the ratings. And I'm even going back to, you came in here when you were first starting.
Yeah, you got there really fast.
No, but I know. But you know what? I wasn't going to go there.
You don't even buy a girl a drink or anything.
No,
you go straight to this.
But here's the thing. I feel like you're enjoying there's a looseness now. There's a certain comfort.
You just do it for a while. I'd never done that before. I've never been on camera as myself. This was, I don't know why I didn't think it would, be excruciating. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I completely, because I'm an actor. I've been an actor my entire life, and I was an actor on the Colbert Report, and then to turn that off and just go out there, stand by a joke with no character in front of you was excruciating for me to learn publicly was very difficult.
There's a weird learning process. You're on 11:30 at night. You're taking over for Letterman. Let's go back in time.
Sure.
And suddenly now you've got to figure this whole thing out in one night. It's tough.
Yeah, it feels like that. It feels like every night you've got to figure it out tonight.
Right.
But then all those little nights add up. Those pebbles turn into a boulder, and you go, oh, yeah, oh, shit, we're rolling downhill.
You came on the air. CBS is pinning a lot of hopes and dreams on you.
Sure.
You've got this great reputation. Everyone goes, oh, Stephen's the smartest and the funniest, blah, 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 blah. The next thing, a couple of months later, all of a sudden, Stephen's out. James Corden's going to be the new late night host. And then James Corden had to deny it and say they're not going to swap out times. Like you were going to go to 12:30, he's going to go to 11:30.
Yeah.
There was like panic that you wouldn't do well.
I never believed that would happen.
You didn't?
No. CBS is like, that is not going to happen.
Nobody said that to you.
No, they said the exact opposite. Like, that is not going to happen.
Right.
It doesn't make sense because you've invested a lot of money in this guy and you don't want to seem like you've been invested. I think it would have to be years. It's not impossible. I think it would have to take years of not delivering for that to happen.
When I think about the trajectory of your television show and how it has become this force, it's a political show and yet it's still fun.
Force is a strong word.
Well, it is.
These shows are always about what the conversation is today.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I learned is that the old show, we actually, not like we broke news, but the old show, we would actually educate the audience to an idea we were interested about. Like I would do 20 months on super PACs or politics like that. That's not this gig.
No.
This gig, and I enjoyed learning this is what is everybody talking about
Water
today?
cooler conversation.
What are people worried about today? What are people excited? Whatever it is. Like, okay, I know you've been thinking about this all day. This is what we thought.
I think you've identified the number one thing that a late night host has to be really up on, which is that water cooler conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think you really found yourself. You expressed a definite point of view. You weren't wishy-washy. You weren't trying to take both sides.
No, I don't have any responsibility to take both sides. My responsibility to give you my opinion.
You see, but like the Johnny Carson era and the Merv Griffin era, no matter who the president was, it was always sort of very middle of the road.
That was more indicative of the country.
Yes.
I mean, all entertainment that Americans enjoy is always a reflection of what America is like right now.
You wouldn't answer who the best Carpool Karaoke guest was. Isn't that true? You, in other words, you avoided saying who the very best was.
Well, it's not the best. I could say who my favorite was.
Yeah.
My favorite for sure.
Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
I understand why the Paul McCartney one would be your I mean, a guy from England, you probably worship the Beatles as much as I do.
Yeah.
It's just mind-blowing that you're sitting there doing Let It Be.
In Liverpool.
Yeah. With Paul McCartney. You cried.
Yeah. It was emotional. I don't know what happened. I couldn't believe that I remember when I was doing it thinking, I don't know what I've done to deserve such memories.
Right.
I don't know what has gone right that I would have such memories. All of it. Everything. The show, the Tonys, but like there in Liverpool, I think because there was like some jet lag involved and you're flying and then we got up to Liverpool and then we're there and we're doing it. And I just had this overwhelming feeling of like my grandfather, who was a musician, who I'm pretty sure introduced the Beatles to me, with my dad at the time, and just had this overwhelming feeling of like this. If he could see this, if he could just get if he had the opportunity to shake the man's hand, it would have made his week, his month, his year. And here am I singing these very songs, and I couldn't help it. It just came. It overwhelmed me in the whole moment. And the brilliance of the man, of Paul, was when I said to him, and I was shocked by it. I'm not someone who's like so quick to be that emotional when you're driving around. It's just me and him in a car. And I said, I didn't expect that. And he said, that's the power of music. And I said to him, if my granddad was here, he'd get a real kick out of this. And he just went, he is. And I was like,
wow. When you took the Daily Show, your grand plan wasn't to become sort of more like a political commentator.
My grand plan was not to get fired. People always think there is a very conscious career path that you are,
you figured it all out.
People don't realize, like, you're just fucking trying to stay afloat.
You were, because I remember in your stand-up, you were not this political animal. You weren't sort of sitting there and doing political commentary.
No, not to that extent. But it was all sort of social commentary. It was just not necessarily through politics. Always politics.
Were you confident the Daily Show was a fit for you when you first got the job, or did you kind of say to yourself, I don't even think this is going to last. This could just be a disaster.
I felt very comfortable doing it. I had a difficult time convincing everyone else who worked there that was the case.
Aren't you shocked how popular? I mean, seriously, for a cable show, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are, but I know they're big.
Well, we also, we came at a very particular time in history. That 2000 election, that, constitutional crisis and who won, and then the Supreme Court decided. There was so much going on, and then 9/11, and then the Iraq War. It was a very particular time in history with a very particular type of show that I think connected in a way that worked in a way that none of us thought.
You put together these great people, guys like John Oliver. When I was talking to Carell, I guess he was telling me he had no background in news. He had no background in this kind of comedy.
It's not news; it's improv.
Yeah, but he was shocked when you hired him. He was like, "Really, me? Why would you hire me?"
And then they're going to cover real events. That's the thing.
He said he almost felt like he didn't belong. It was kind of fascinating. So how do you?
So funny.
Are you the guy who identifies these people?
For the most part, you get people doing an imitation of what you might like, but there's a falseness to it.
Right.
But then you see somebody who's bringing, the thing about Carell that was always interesting is you can see with him, he finds moments in scripts that you didn't realize were there.
Right.
Like he views it from a skewed perspective. So he's bringing a moment to it that you didn't see, and you're like, all right, I'll take that guy. Anybody that you find that can elevate what you've written, that's your choice.
So in your mind, who is the audience for The Daily Show? In other words, when you sit there and you're writing this comedy material, who the hell is watching this thing? Is it the college student? Who is in your mind when you're...
It's grown, Howard. It's grown, and it's. I've been really lucky, because when we started, obviously we lost the initial viewers who left with John.
Right.
A lot of the older viewers said, well, I guess, now it's not our show.
In other words, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If it ain't John, I'm not interested.
Right, which makes sense.
And you had a big drop-off.
And then what happened is we just had to slowly build a new audience, and then the old audience came back, which was really interesting.
Were you personally insulted when they left? Just
not
because,
at all.
I mean, it's sort of the cult of personality that John leaves, and
I've done that. How many times I would stop watching a show because I do that. Like, we all do that as people.
Were you afraid that the network would say to you, listen, you're a good guy, we like you, you're likable, but you're losing our audience.
Right.
Were you afraid they wouldn't give you that window, that time to rebuild?
No. The only thing I wasn't afraid of was the network.
Did they meet with you regularly? Did they start, when they saw the drop-off, did they start to say, listen, buddy, you don't know everything. We're going to teach you how to do this.
No, I was lucky. I inherited the same team that started the show with John.
Right.
So, for instance, Doug Herzog and Michelle Gainless, they were there when John started. So for instance, they remembered when people were like, oh, John won't be able to do this show, when Craig Kilborn was doing it. And I know now, if you said that in today's world, people would be like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they remember a time when people were like, Jon Stewart, the guy with the he has 7 failed shows. How could he ever take over from the amazing Craig Kilborn? That's impossible.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Craig Kilborn was the guy who started The Daily Show.
And he was, at that time, he was the hottest. I mean, he got poached from The Daily Show. He was so hot.